everybody, and welcome to this week's newsletter. We're going to go into a little bit of something that I hear all the time in clinic around trauma, emotional, mental toxicity, things that happen on such a regular basis when people are dealing with diseases or illnesses or imbalances in their body. And it's something that's not spoken about much. There was a guy called Jeff English who actually talks about this, and I was listening to an episode with Peter Attia discussing around how trauma is a little bit of a loaded word, right? It sparks skepticism. People do the eye rolling. It's like, oh, I'm sick of hearing about trauma. Why don't you just get over it? There are two particular traumas that he talks about, and he talks about like the big trauma, the trauma which is like some sort of really significant emotional event, some sort of assault, some sort of war, something that has like some big aspect where you can sort of see that that is going on. The second one is what they call the little t trauma. And the little t trauma is like lots and lots and lots of little paper cuts. And those paper cuts happen when maybe like, a child is not being taken care of by a parent, or there's maybe some bullying, or there's some issues where there's some neglect or some abandonment or something that is going on. The child is needing attention and they don't get the attention that they want. And these are called like the little t traumas. And depending on like who you are and how you've adapted, you can have two kids that have come out of the exact same environment, the exact same like abusive environment possibly, and one kid goes into like drugs and alcohol and the other kid goes into like full-on entrepreneurialism and success and has a bit of a driver. So they have a different way of dealing with, one goes like addictive. And so in the trauma tree that you'll see down below in the image, he talks about that there's all these things which are the root cause of the problem. We talk about this in health. What is the root cause of the problem? The symptom, everything above, is not usually the root cause, right? Lack of sleep, skin problems, all these other issues are not necessarily really the problem. It's usually the tragic event, the abandonment, the neglect, abuse. There's all of these root cause issues, and the way that we deal with it, or people deal with it, is maladaptive strategies. They have attachment issues. Maybe there's addictive patterns, or there's codependency. There's some way to adapt and some way to cope. So one of the ways that I have used this before is, let me just share with you something that I talk about and teach my clients. Is really quite good to see it as a little bit more of a visual experience. So if we take like, a picture, like a person's face, and I'm not a very, very good drawer, but let's say that is you or that is somebody, right? Then there's something which is outside of that, which is called a significant emotional event. And the way I explain that to my clients is, the significant emotional event is something which is like the causative factor, right? So it is like the circumstance. This is a circumstance. It's the actual event that happened. So, if we are in a court of law, we can all say and agree that actually happened. What happens normally when there's some type of an event, you have like a significant emotional event, and then you will make it mean something. And the way you came up with that meaning is really dependent on your identity or your internal representation of that event. But when a significant emotional event, the way that we can cope with that consciously is our conscious mind can only break things down into 4 to 9 different particles, right? But our conscious mind works at 214 millibeats per second. So it's processing things at a fast and rapid rate. So lots of things can go into our nervous system. So for example, if you're walking down the cereal aisle of the supermarket, there are like hundreds and hundreds of cereals in that. But if I say to you, just start naming them for me, and you'll start naming it like Cocoa Pops, Fruit Loops, like you can see which ones were my favorite when I was younger. Wheat Bix, cornflakes, porridge, Nutri-Grain, and you'll get out 5 to 7 like pretty quickly before you have to really think it, like boom, 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 boom. That's because your body can break that down, your mind can break that down into 5 to 7 parts. But the way that our conscious mind can deal with this is we either delete it, we distort it, or we generalize it. So, and then that goes into our nervous system, and depending on our identity of who we are, or our internal representation of the picture of the event that we saw, or maybe the pictures that we are creating, depends on how we cope with things. So the second part of that is that you go into a certain state, and we call this like, how do you feel? So the meaning of your event is your thoughts, right? So it's like the circumstance is actually what happened. That's a significant emotional event. The thoughts is actually what the meaning you gave that. And when you gave it a meaning, you went into a certain state. So that's anger, frustration, irritability, resentment, or whatever. And this is where this goes into physical toxicity as well. So physiology wise, if you have some sort of like emotion, that emotion will make you like, you'll have some sort of feeling, right? And that will affect you, like put in more excess heat. So if there's worry, anxiety, and stress, there's more air. If there's more frustration, irritability, or resentment, there's more heat. If there's more like withdrawal, sadness, or like sort of depression, it'll put more like kapha, which more mucus into the body, more heaviness, more swelling. So then it physically starts to show up as an imbalance in your body. And as that starts to build, that can cause like huge amounts of physiology issues. Now, from when you have a certain feeling, there will be your body that will take certain actions. So depending on your actions will come from your feelings, but you don't have a feeling until you have a thought, right? Everyone thinks that everything happened because of the event. It's like, this is what happened. This is why I did something. That's actually not what you did something. The only reason you did it is because you had a thought and that made you feel a certain way. And then those actions that you took is because of that feeling. Now, the actions could be like eating more, drinking more, be on social media, over exercising, overworking, whatever it is, there's some sort of adaptive process that you have done to try to deal with that. There's also some sort of belief system, we call it BS, that is also creating some impact to here. So when you have a certain belief system of something, that belief system will affect sometimes the actions that you take. Like, for example, a belief system should be family should always stick together. So let's say if somebody's in an abusive relationship, they will not leave or separate because they have a belief system that you should never separate and family should always be together, or women should always do this, or such and such, right? So there's all these different belief systems that happen depending on what that is. Then you'll get certain results. So those results will be dependent on what actions you take. So you do not get results without action. So you can see what happens when people get stuck in some sort of, trauma or some sort of significant emotional event, and they want to get a certain result. But the result is very much on like reverse engineering this. And so if you want a particular result, you need to take certain actions. If you want to have certain actions, you need to have a certain feeling or a certain state. Then you have to have a different thought about it. Circumstance is not ever the problem. What actually happened is never the problem. It's how you adapt to that process. In the lesson that we have gone through and the notes below, you'll see in the article, Jeff tells a story about a little boy in a household where his father was very angry, right? And he routinely exploded into violence against his mother, right? And each time the shouting began, the boy would run to his room and he would hide. And this was his way of dealing with it. And then one night, the terror was so unbelievable. So he decided to try to be sick and started to be sick in the bathroom. And then his father got diverted to come to him and then yelled at the boy's mother and said, see what you're doing, see your behavior, see how this is affecting and making our son sick. But the violence stopped. So his behavior stopped the violence from actually happening. So he learned a very powerful lesson that deception can keep people safe. So something that he learned to survive, something that was allowing him, had actually turned into some bigger problem later on in life. And then this starts to snowball. And sometimes we can't ever take it back to that significant emotional event or realize when we decided to do something. But just being aware that there's a possible reason for why these things happen, what comes up, how this shows up. And one thing I always say to my clients is, physical toxicity is nowhere near as bad as emotional and mental toxicity, because that toxicity causes a certain feeling that changes the way that every single cell in your body will feel fearful, we'll feel anger, we'll feel frustration, we'll feel anxiety. Every single cell will feel that in an instant, in a moment, right? As if when you're eating something bad, not that I'm saying go and eat something bad and it's okay. When you're eating something bad, then that takes time to process, takes time to digest, takes time to go through. It actually takes 35 days to go through each channel of your body, where the physical, like the emotional toxicity is in an instant. So one of the things we do in our detoxification program, we're physically detoxifying and emotionally detoxifying and allowing the body to rid a lot of toxicity. So on a very, very deep level, so it actually leaves you, but then you can learn the processes of adapting. So if you have been struggling with a health problem that's been going on for a long time and you know it's entwined, maybe ask yourself the question and do some of the tips that we have is just reflect and go, well, what is the circumstance? What actually happened? And ask yourself, in who you are now as an adult, what is it that you can make sense of? And what did you do to adapt? Have a look at the things on the top of the tree. Do you have any addictive behaviors? Have you been buffering, eating chocolate and whatever, and all these different things for such a long period of time? Or, maybe you're social media, or maybe you're watching Netflix, or you're doing some sort of avoiding thing. Have a think about that and have a look at that root connection by seeing what is going on and rate it on a like 1 to 10 aspect. And this is going to give you some awareness. So I hope you get some great insight from that. Let us know if you need any support around it. But I just want to share with you how emotional toxicity can cause more physical aspects. And by you seeing and understanding it in a little bit different, might give you some insight of what's going on in your body. Alrighty, take care. Bye.